I'm William Willie Crawford. I'm 91 years old, and I need to tell you about the two wars I fought. The first one was in Europe against the Nazis. I won that war. We all did. The second war was right here at home against my own country. That war, I'm still not sure who won. I killed men for America, watched my friends die for America, left pieces of my body and my mind on battlefields an ocean away, all for a flag and a promise. And when I came home, when I stepped off that bus in my uniform with my medals on my chest, America looked me in the eye and said, "Boy, who told you that you could use the front door? I was a hero over there. I was nothing over here." And if you want to understand why black men of my generation carry a certain kind of anger, a quiet, cold anger that never quite goes away, you need to understand what it feels like to bleed for a country that refuses to see you as human. Let me take you back. Back to Anniston, Alabama, 1933. That's where I came into this world, heart of Dixie, cotton country, the kind of place where every black child learned the rules before they learned the alphabet. My father worked at the pipe factory, hardest working man I ever knew. My mother cleaned houses for white families on the other side of town. Same story as a million other black families in the South. We were poor, but we were proud. We went to church on Sundays. We said yes, sir, and no, ma'am. We stayed in our place. I was the second of 5 children, average student, nothing special. But I was big for my age, strong. By the time I was 16, I was 6'2" and could lift more than most grown men. The football coach at the colored high school said I had potential, said maybe I could get a scholarship somewhere if I kept my nose clean. Then December 7th, 1941, happened. Pearl Harbor. Everything changed. I was 8 years old when the war started, too young to fight. But I remember the newsreels, the posters, the speeches about freedom and democracy and the American way. I remember thinking, that's what I want to do. I want to fight for my country. I want to be a hero. By the time I turned 18 in 1951, that war was over. But there was a new one, Korea. And they were drafting young men faster than you could blink. I didn't wait to be drafted. I enlisted, walked right into that recruitment office in Anniston with my chest puffed out, ready to serve. The white sergeant behind the desk looked at me like I was something stuck to his shoe. "You sure about this, boy?" he said. "Army life ain't easy for your kind." I said, "I'm sure, sir. I want to serve my country." He shrugged. "Your funeral?" That's what they kept telling me. Your funeral, like my wanting to fight for America, was some kind of death wish. But we trained. Lord, did we train? Twice as hard as anyone else, because we knew we'd have to be twice as good to get half the recognition. That's a lesson every black person learns eventually. I just learned it with a rifle in my hands. They shipped us to Korea in the spring of 1952. I was 19 years old. Thought I knew what war was from the movies, from the stories. I didn't know anything. The first time I saw combat was near a place called Heartbreak Ridge. Chinese forces dug into the mountains, raining fire down on us. Men dying left and right, screaming, praying, crying for their mothers. And me, just trying to stay alive, trying to do my job, trying not to think about the fact that back home I couldn't drink from the same water fountain as the men I was fighting beside. Let me tell you something about combat, about what it does to the lies you've been told your whole life. In a foxhole, when the bullets are flying and the mortars are falling, nobody cares what color you are. I saw white soldiers from Mississippi and Alabama fighting alongside black soldiers from Chicago and Detroit, sharing ammunition, sharing food, saving each other's lives. In those moments, we were just men, just soldiers, just Americans trying to survive. I remember one night, pinned down by enemy fire, huddled in a crater with 3 other soldiers, 2 white boys from Tennessee, and a Mexican kid from Texas. We thought we were going to die. And one of the Tennessee boys, name was Jimmy Caldwell, he looked at me and said, "Willie, if we make it out of this, I'm going to buy you a beer, a real beer, at a real bar." I said, "Jimmy, where we come from, they won't let me in the bar." He was quiet for a minute. Then he said, "That ain't right. That ain't right at all. We made it out. Jimmy didn't buy me that beer. 3 weeks later, he stepped on a landmine. Gone. Just like that. 20 years old. I think about Jimmy sometimes. Wonder if he would have kept his word. Wonder if getting shot at together would have been enough to overcome everything we'd been taught about each other. I'll never know. I served 18 months in Korea, saw things no 19-year-old should see, did things I still can't talk about, lost friends whose names I whisper to myself some nights when I can't sleep. And somewhere in there, the boy from Anniston who'd enlisted to be a hero disappeared. In his place was something harder, something older, something that had seen too much to ever be innocent again. I was awarded the Bronze Star for valor, pulled 3 wounded soldiers to safety under enemy fire. The citation called me a credit to his unit and his country. A credit. Like I was interest on a loan. When my service was up, they gave me an honorable discharge and a ticket home. I rode that bus for 2 days, still in my uniform, my medals pinned to my chest. I thought things might be different now. I'd served my country, bled for it. Surely that meant something. Surely they'd see me differently. The bus stopped in a small town in Georgia. I don't even remember the name, just a rest stop, a diner. I was hungry, hadn't eaten since the morning. I walked into that diner in my United States Army uniform with my Bronze Star visible on my chest, and the whole place went quiet. Every white face turned to look at me, and then the man behind the counter, fat guy with a stained apron, he said, "We don't serve niggers here. Back door or get out." Back door, in my uniform, with my medals, after 18 months of fighting for this country. I stood there for a long moment. Part of me wanted to burn that place to the ground. Part of me wanted to cry. Part of me just wanted to disappear. I walked out, got back on the bus, didn't eat until I got to Alabama. That was my welcome home. That was America saying thank you for your service. Anniston wasn't any better. The colored signs were still up. The back of the bus was still where I belonged. The good jobs were still for white. Men only. My uniform didn't matter. My medals didn't matter. My service didn't matter. I was still just another nigger in Alabama. But here's what really broke me. Here's what I've carried for 70 years like a stone in my chest. The GI Bill. You've heard of it, probably. The Servicemen's Readjustment Act of 1944. One of the greatest pieces of legislation in American history, they say. It promised every returning veteran money for college, low-interest loans for homes and businesses, unemployment benefits while they got back on their feet. It built the American middle class. It created a generation of prosperity for white veterans. I went to the VA office in Anniston 3 weeks after I got home. Walked in with my discharge papers, my service record, my Bronze Star citation. I wanted to use the GI Bill to go to college, maybe become an engineer. I was good with machines, good with numbers. I had dreams. The man behind the desk was white, of course. They all were. He looked at my papers, looked at me and said, "Well, son, the GI Bill is for everyone, but you understand, the colleges around here don't accept colored students. You'd have to go to a colored college." I said that was fine. I'd go to a colored college. Tuskegee, maybe. I'd heard good things. He nodded slowly. Well, the thing is, those schools have limited capacity, long waiting lists, might be years before you get in, and the benefits don't last forever. He was right. By the time I got to the front of the waiting list 3 years later, my benefits had expired. I never got my degree. But it got worse. I tried to use the GI Bill to buy a house, settle down, start a family. The VA loan program was supposed to make it easy for veterans to become homeowners. I found a house I liked in a colored neighborhood in Anniston. Small place, nothing fancy, but it had a yard. I could see myself there, could see raising children there. The loan was denied. The bank said the neighborhood was too risky. That's what they called it. Too risky. What they meant was too black. Redlining, they call it now. Back then, they didn't call it anything. They just said no and showed you the door. I applied to 3 more banks. Same answer. No. 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 White veterans were buying houses in the suburbs, building equity, creating wealth that would pass down to their children and grandchildren. I was stuck, renting a 2-room apartment on the wrong side of town, watching the American dream happen to everyone but me. The GI Bill created the white middle class. It created the wealth gap that exists to this day. And it did it by giving everything to white veterans and nothing to black ones. Same bill, same law, different America. I got a job at the same pipe factory where my father worked, same job he'd been doing for 30 years, same low wages, same dangerous conditions, same ceiling that no black man could ever break through. I'd gone halfway around the world, killed for my country, nearly died a dozen times and ended up right back where I started. My father, God rest him, he used to look at me sometimes with these sad eyes, never said much, but I knew what he was thinking. He tried to warn me, tried to tell me that fighting their war wouldn't make them see me as equal. I hadn't listened, and now here I was, living proof that he was right. Let me tell you about a man named Isaac Robinson, served with me in Korea, one of the best soldiers I ever knew, could shoot the wings off a fly at 200 yards, saved my life twice. Once in combat, once when I got food poisoning so bad I nearly died, and he carried me 3 miles to a medic. Isaac went home to Mississippi after the war, tried to register to vote. It was 1953. Black veterans were coming home, feeling empowered, thinking maybe their service had earned them a voice. 3 white men met Isaac outside the registrar's office. Beat him so bad he lost sight in one eye, left him bleeding in the street. Nobody was ever charged. Nobody ever would be. When I heard what happened to Isaac, something in me went cold, and it never warmed up again. I got married in 1956, a woman named Pearlie Mae who I'd known since childhood. She was kind, patient. She saw the anger in me and didn't flinch from it, said she'd help me carry it. We had 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls. I worked at that factory for 41 years. Never got promoted, watched white men with half my experience, half my skill, move up and up while I stayed exactly where I was. And every Veterans Day, every Memorial Day, I'd see the parades, the flags, the speeches about sacrifice and service and the brave men who fought for freedom. And I'd think about that diner in Georgia, about the VA office, about the loans I was denied and the education I never got, about Isaac Robinson bleeding in the street. What freedom? Whose freedom? I'll tell you the cruelest joke of all, the cruelest irony. We were fighting fascism. We were fighting a regime that believed some people were superior to others based on their blood. That's what the Nazis believed. That's what we were supposed to be defeating. And we came home to Jim Crow. We came home to segregation. We came home to a country that believed some people were superior to others based on their blood. We defeated fascism in Europe, and we came home to American fascism with a different name. I watched the civil rights movement from a distance. I was too tired to march, too beaten down, too busy just trying to survive, trying to feed my family, trying to stay out of the way of white folks who could destroy my life on a whim. But my children marched. My oldest son, William Jr., he was at the Birmingham church just weeks before those 4 little girls were killed by that bomb. Could have been him. Could have been my boy. I couldn't protect them. That's what haunts me. I couldn't protect my own children from the country I'd fought for. Things changed, slowly, painfully. The Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, integration, progress, they called it. And yes, it was progress. I won't deny that. My grandchildren have opportunities I never dreamed of. They can go to any school, live in any neighborhood, vote without getting beaten. But the wealth gap that the GI Bill created, that's still there. The trauma that was passed down from men like me to our children and grandchildren, that's still there. The anger, that's still there too. I'm 91 years old. Pearlie Mae, passed in 2018, 62 years together. She was the only reason I survived some days, the only reason the anger didn't eat me alive. My grandson Marcus, he's in the Army now, 3rd generation. I told him not to go. Told him what happened to me. He said, "Grandpa, it's different now. Maybe it is. I hope it is." But when he came home on leave last year, he told me about the racism he still faces, the assumptions, the microaggressions, they call them now, The feeling of being seen as less than, even in uniform, different name, same war. I still have my bronze star. Keep it in a box in my closet. Haven't looked at it in years. My children want me to frame it, display it, be proud of it. I can't. Every time I see it, I think about that diner, about the man calling me a nigger while I wore the uniform I'd nearly died in. That medal is a reminder of a promise that was broken, a contract that was never honored. I gave America everything, and America gave me nothing but a back door and a lifetime of being told I wasn't good enough. A few years ago, they started talking about reparations for black veterans, for the ones who were denied the GI Bill, for the wealth that was stolen from us. I won't live to see that happen. I know that. But I hope my grandchildren do. I hope they get something for what was taken from us. Not for me. It's too late for me. But for Isaac Robinson, who lost his eye trying to vote. For Jimmy Caldwell, who died in Korea wondering if he could buy a black man a beer. For my father, who watched his son go off to war and come back to chains. For all the black men who gave everything and received nothing. We deserved better. We earned better. And this country owes a debt it has never paid. I keep a photograph on my wall. Only one. It's from 1952, taken somewhere in Korea. 5 soldiers standing together, arms around each other, grinning at the camera. 2 black, 3 white. We just survived a battle. We were alive. In that moment, we were brothers. 3 of those men didn't make it home. The 2 who did, me and a white boy from Ohio named Patterson, we never spoke again. Went back to our separate worlds, our separate Americas. I look at that photograph and I see what this country could have been, what it still could be if it ever finds the courage to keep the promises it makes. I'm 91 years old. I don't have much time left. But I'm still waiting, still hoping, still angry, and still proud that I served. That's the contradiction I live with. I'm proud and I'm furious. I'm grateful and I'm bitter. I love this country and I hate what it did to me. Both things are true. Both things will always be true. So this is my story. I want to thank this channel and the entire team for hearing me, for giving me the opportunity to finally speak my truth after all these years. I hope you share this with the young men in your life. I want them to know what their grandfathers and great-grandfathers went through. I want them to understand why we carry what we carry. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories like mine, and if you've got your own story to tell, you can simply send it to the channel in email. Maybe next time we'll be sharing your story.